You're at a classic neon-lit diner down in the Deep South. The waitress slides a slice of key lime pie across the formica counter. You take a bite. It's flawlessly tart, balanced by a dense velvety sweetness that holds the whole thing together. That rich texture comes from that iconic blue and white can of sweetened condensed milk, a timeless staple in American pantries, right next to the Betty Crocker mix. But here is something that might surprise you. This thick golden liquid was not invented for Thanksgiving pies, fudges, or sweet treats. It was invented because children kept dying, and the man who created it had already failed at everything. His meat cracker made soldiers vomit. His amphibious wagon sank. Then he watched a child die from bad milk on a ship, and nothing else mattered. Gail Borden Jr. was born in New York in 1801. He surveyed land across the wild Texas frontier, planned the city of Galveston, and spent years trying to sell a dehydrated beef biscuit, the ultimate pioneer survival ration, that won a gold medal in London but made the United States Army physically ill. On the ship home from that exhibition in 1851, the cows on board fell sick. Their milk turned contaminated. Children who drank it died. That voyage ended the meat biscuit. Borden had a new obsession. He visited a Shaker colony in upstate New York, where they showed him their vacuum pan, a sealed device that boiled liquids at lower temperatures to preserve potency without burning. Borden spent 2 years adapting it to milk, removing 60% of the water and adding sugar as a natural preservative. In 1856, after 3 years fighting Washington patent officials who called his method unoriginal, he finally received his patent. Then he tried to sell it. His first factory in Connecticut failed within a year. His second failed too, crushed by the Wall Street panic of 1857. On a train, Borden met Jeremiah Milbank, a New York financier who invested $100,000. Together, they founded the New York Condensed Milk Company. The product was ready, but nobody was buying. Here is the thing nobody tells you about condensed milk. The science is not complicated, the discipline is. The process begins with fresh whole milk delivered within hours of milking. Borden created what he called the dairyman's 10 commandments. Strict sanitary rules for every farmer who supplied him. Wash the udders before milking. Keep the barns swept clean. Scald and dry your strainers morning and night. This was decades before the FDA even existed to make hygiene standard practice. The milk is heated to around 70 degrees Celsius, enough to kill harmful bacteria without scorching flavor. Then it enters the vacuum pan, a sealed chamber where air pressure is reduced. Inside, water evaporates at 40 to 50 degrees Celsius instead of 100. This is critical. Boiling milk at full heat destroys proteins and caramelizes the sugar, producing a burnt, bitter taste. The vacuum lets water escape without damaging the milk. Over several hours, roughly 60% of the water evaporates. What remains is thick, pale, and concentrated. Then comes the sugar. Borden added enough to raise sugar concentration to around 45% of total volume. Here is why that number matters. Every liquid has what scientists call water activity, a measure of how much free water is available for bacteria to use. Pure water has a water activity of 1. Most bacteria need at least 0.91 to survive. At 45% sugar concentration, condensed milk drops to around 0.83. That is below the survival threshold for nearly every common pathogen. The sugar does not kill bacteria. It starves them. There is simply not enough available water for them to grow. This is also why condensed milk and evaporated milk are not the same thing. Both start with the same vacuum process. But evaporated milk has no added sugar, so its water activity remains high enough for bacteria to grow. That is why evaporated milk must be sterilized at high heat and still requires refrigeration after opening. Condensed milk does not. Sugar does the work that heat cannot. The final product is poured into tin-coated steel cans and sealed airtight. Each 10-ounce can delivers roughly 1,300 calories, shelf-stable for months, even in heat. But the surprises keep stacking. When the Civil War began in 1861, The Union Army placed its first order, 500 pounds of fresh milk spoiled in the southern heat before reaching the front lines. Borden's canned milk did not. By 1863, his factory produced 14,000 quarts per day. He licensed his patent nationwide. When the war ended, GIs went home and kept buying it. It became the secret weapon in Southern banana puddings and Midwestern church bake sales. But the real conquest happened far from America. Colonial supply lines carried condensed milk across the Pacific. Military rations reached ports in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Latin America. What arrived as wartime provision stayed as something else entirely. Here is where the story flips. In Vietnam, street vendors mixed it with dark roasted coffee and ice. Café Suada. In Thailand, it became the sweetness in Cheyenne, that orange tea from every cart in Bangkok. In Hong Kong, the Pai Dong stalls stirred it into milk tea for dock workers. In India, it replaced hours of slow boiling for traditional sweets. In Brazil, they boiled sealed cans until the milk caramelized into doce de leite. A Western military ration became the backbone of comfort food across 4 continents. Nobody planned it. Borden invented condensed milk to solve one problem: stop milk from killing children. He had no idea it would feed an army, survive a war, or cross oceans. He never imagined a woman in Saigon pouring it over ice, or a grandmother in Sao Paulo boiling a sealed can on her stove, or a teenager in Bangkok ordering Cheyenne after school, without knowing the sweet layer at the bottom started with a man who watched children die on a ship. That is the thing about the most lasting inventions. They do not succeed because someone planned for every use. They succeed because they are simple enough to be adopted by anyone and flexible enough to become something the inventor never imagined. Borden wanted safe milk. The world turned it into comfort. Nobody asked permission. They just poured. A failed American pioneer whose meat biscuit made soldiers vomit ended up creating one of the most loved ingredients on 4 continents. He just never lived to see it. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. And if you think a life-saving milk turning into a global dessert is wild, wait until you see what we're serving up next. In our next episode, we are pulling back the curtain on the ultimate American condiment. A sauce you probably dip your French fries in every single week, but had a history so dark, it was originally sold in pills as a stomach medicine to hide its toxic ingredients. What you're putting on your burger has a secret past that the food industry tried to bury. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss it. You will never look at a diner menu the same way again. If there's another mystery you'd like us to explore, drop it in the comments below. Until then, trust the process.